Sunday school this morning. Proverbs 20, verse 7 was what kind of prompted us to go to Proverbs 20 today. Proverbs 20 is a very, I don't know what you would call it. It's each verse is almost its own proverb, its own little quote. So there's not just a super unifying connection between each verse, but each verse can actually stand on its own in many ways. So we'll have to kind of talk about it from that nature, and then there's a few of them that I had some notes on that I put in today. I had thought originally of just almost doing the whole chapter without any notes and just seeing where the Lord would take us, and I thought that might end up being kind of dangerous, so I tried to structure some things that would keep me in more boundaries and stuff. But from 1 to 13, I may have to run a rabbit or two, if that'll be all right. We'll see. I didn't really come, and verse 1 is the one that I really didn't want to talk about very much, but it's here nevertheless. It says, wine produces mockers, alcohol leads to brawls. Those led astray by drink cannot be wise. We've probably heard this, in the King James, that wine is a mocker and strong drink is raging. I think that's the King James version of this scripture. We don't want to talk a lot about alcohol today, fermented alcohol, because that's definitely what this is leading us to and talking to. I read, I think it's the NIV that actually translates this, that it says, wine will mock you and beer leads to brawl, or beer is brawling, which is a little different interpretation of it. It actually places the word beer in there where alcohol is, but the original is I believe kind of translates to alcohol, which is probably a much better translation. Like the King James says, a strong drink, obviously that insinuates to a very fermented, high alcohol content drink that would lead to impairment of your mind. So it is so to the sinner, to the one that partakes in this, that strong drink, that wine, will mock that person. What it means is that it'll make a fool of that person. It will take over that wine. It promises that person satisfaction, which it can never give. Many people that indulge themselves in the abundance of alcohol that will make you drunk, alcohol that impairs your mind, it's along the lines of a false promise. It's a promise to forget your troubles, to escape your troubles. It's a promise to get a nice fuzzy buzz feeling that they call this buzz feel. It's a promise for a period of time to release your stress and your anxiety. And the problem that it is that it makes mockery of you. It'll make a fool of you, thinking that I don't know. I don't really know the exact appeal. People have. I have talked about to many people about this. Some say it's they kind of compare it to like a pain pill almost, that it's a temporary relief. In other words, that they know that it's not the solution to their issue. They would say, I know it's not the solution, but it is a temporary relief, and would compare it with you taking a pain pill maybe, or something of that nature. I would beg to differ, and I've had debates with folks that if you are taking a ibuprofen or a Tylenol, or maybe even something that is much stronger, it is a antidote for that, probably that pain that you have daily that never goes away, so that you can function at a higher level. Alcohol, I've never saw give anybody the ability to function at a higher level. Matter of fact, it's a depressant, I believe, if I'm correct. So what it does is it brings you down, unless you have obviously some character traits that it magnifies. That's another thing that we see, that it magnifies really some of the worst character traits, probably the character traits that you try to hide, that you try to suppress more than it does anything. I saw angry drunks, and I saw like crazy nice drunks. So I don't know what the rhyme and the reason is, which one is which, but it's very interesting that it leads to not being very productive. And I think that's where the mockery comes in. It promises things it won't give. It really smiles at you first. It's very enticing. You can look at every commercial, every alcohol commercial. Have you ever noticed that the alcohol commercials, the beer commercials, never show anybody dog drunk? Have you ever noticed that? They never display the true effects of the overindulgence of alcohol. What they show you is that if you put one in your hand, if you're a male, you'll have a beautiful woman by your side. And if you'll notice, we must have a larger, it's like clothes, all right? If you'll notice, women's clothes just do not go on sale compared to men's clothes. My wife and my children can complain. My girls have followed my wife's suit in complaining about me getting clothes cheaply, and they're having us pay a higher price for them. Why is that? Well, the market dictates that, right? The market dictates that women will buy more clothes than men. Men will buy clothes sometimes out of necessity, although we do have, I can't remember, they called them metrosexual men that were very clothing and all about, being in style and things like that. But even though we do have a population of men, but still the very masculine man, just, hey, he buys what he needs, and sometimes the female buys, or his wife or his girlfriend or whoever it is buys what mama sometimes just buys the clothes that he needs, and he's not near the shopper that a female might be. Now, this is just, you can dispute it. This may not be you. We're not necessarily trying to gender bias people, but the fact remains is the truth's in the money that's coming in, right? So statistics say, the economics say that, females are going to buy more clothes. Therefore, we don't have to put them on sale because they're going to buy them anyways. Well, same way with alcohol. Apparently, we have a larger population of men that drink. We're on Father's Day, so Proverbs 20 does direct some things toward men a little bit more than it does women. And kind of why I picked Proverbs 20 and felt like the Lord kind of led us to Proverbs 20 is in the direction that, just like the marketability in our world that we live in today is marketed more toward men. I mean, if they really marketed like they want, what woman would want to drink and get her a dog-drunk man? Not many, right? And then if you flip the script, not many men would probably want that dog-drunk woman. Because there's just it's almost a singular thing when you get intoxicated. It's just an interesting fact that we see that it's a mocker. It's going to mock you. It's going to smile at you at first. It's going to entice you. It's going to look good, but at the very end, it's going to bite you. It is a dog that's wagging its tail at you, and as you get close to pet that dog, he bites your hand off. It entices you to just come a little closer. And it looks friendly. It looks good. But then when you really partake and try to go to the fullness of it, it'll bite that hand. In reflection upon it, it rages in this conscience. It's a raging in the body. It puts the humors into a ferment. When the wine is in the belly, when the wine is in the person, his natural temper will come out. It either mocks like a fool or it rages in him or her like a mad person. Drunkenness, which pretends to be a social thing, very sociable to get drunk, renders men, even women, just to be honest with you, whether you like it or not, unfit for society. I just cannot find the productivity that it generates within society or anything. It pretends, to be this great thing. but it makes usually people abusive with their tongues, or it makes them outrageous in their passions. It just does not seem to be profitable, and that's why the proverb says, wine produces mockers, alcohol leads to brawls. Those led astray by the drink cannot be wise. You know, when you read Proverbs, usually it's because you're searching out wisdom. You're searching out direction. It's probably one of the greatest road maps. It has the singular best quotes that you can pull, just inspirational quotes from this proverb to this proverb. It's somewhat a very easy read because you can, like in Proverbs 20:20, you can take things one verse at a time, and you can actually enables you to pull out that verse and just think about that verse. Where Matthew chapter 20, you need to take everything in context. It's the gospel story, and it ping pongs from the chapter before, and then it goes to the chapter after. There's great connection and continuity throughout it all, and some of Proverbs is like that also, as we have already saw in this class. But some of it is an easy thing just to take one verse and talk about, because look at the next verse. Has nothing to do with alcohol at all. Verse 2 says, the king's fury is like a lion's roar. To rouse his anger is to risk your life. It really has not much to do with the other than a caution. You know, we could call Proverbs 20 a proverb of caution, because it seems to be cautioning us things that would bring forth wisdom and not wisdom, and would consider you unwise. I think... Back to verse 1 just for a second. I think it would be good to say in the church house for people that love Jesus, people that are searching out better ways to live their life, and a better lifestyle, a lifestyle that would bring profit to their life and would be a profitable lifestyle for them. What does that mean? Really, a lifestyle of joy and happiness, I guess, is what we're all really looking for. We want the fruits of the Spirit to be in our lives. That's really what we want. Even if you're a non-Christian, do you understand the fruits of the Spirit is what you want in your life? Joy, peace, understanding, happiness. These things are really what you want in your life, whether you're a Christian or not. The fruits of the Spirit is what humanity longs for in their life. So, with that being said, we see that verse 1, you would want to be a wise individual. You want to have joy and peace. And verse 1 saying, if you're going to do this, you're really not wise. You cannot be a wise person. What does that mean? What happens when you make unwise decisions? Well, you're sowing unwise seed. And what do you do when you sow seed? You have a harvest that will be reaped. So seeds of discord, seeds that are sown there, are going to reap things in your life that you don't want. So therefore, it's unwise. Some people say, why don't you just drink a little alcohol? One thing, I'm more profitable not touching alcohol. Number 2, I've tasted it before. It's not that great. People say, but beer, you can get it. I've got folks that will tell me to this day that they love the taste of beer. They have an acquired taste to it. And you know what? I can understand that they have acquired a taste to it. But that's the definition. They have acquired a taste to it. I'll never be able to acquire a taste to it because I ain't going to drink it enough to acquire a taste to it. You know why? Because I hate to say this, people want to be superheroes because we live in a superhero world. But I'm still telling you, when the fire's burning, you put your hand in the fire, it's going to burn it. I don't want to play with fire. Now, I hate it. Sometimes in life, it seems like I got to move the logs around and I got to get a little close sometimes to make sure things work out. But I don't want to play with fire because Mama said when you play with fire, you get burnt with fire. Verse 2 gives us another really wise proverb that the king's fury is like a lion's roar. Now, we don't live necessarily in the day of kings, but I want to tell you something. If you knew the President of the United States, if you were very close to the President, or if the President of the United States, you really don't want to infuriate a man of power or a woman of power. I want to tell you, I'd say even a woman of power might even be better. You better, like your wife, you better watch out. You don't want to infuriate her. Because, you know, they just, sometimes it gets bad. The king's fury is like a lion's roar. To rouse his anger is to risk your life. People think, we see a day where that you have to, we see a day that lacks respect for anybody. People just do not respect authority whatsoever. We're a day that everybody wants to be the teacher, but nobody wants to be the listener. We think that our way is the best way, is the right way, or a lot, especially within society, that everybody has to find their own path, and that's the path of wisdom. And, we see this in jobs and stuff. A lot of times we come across a lot of good folks that can't hold down a job because they can't handle having a boss. I mean, it's like, listen, if you're at Walmart and you just got hired in Walmart, love to use Walmart, you got a boss. It's not profitable for you to infuriate the boss because you're going to get fired. Because, listen, we're pretty imperfect, especially when we start new jobs. Jobs that we don't know a lot about, but we're trying to learn a skill and learn a job. We don't need, there's an easy way to find things in us that are not perfect and have reasons why we don't need to continue in the job. And if you infuriate the king or the person that has the power, it's even going to be worse. Now, I look at this verse, and I think that we just need to understand that we're not necessarily, we don't need to compromise. I'm not saying we need to compromise our ethics or our morality in any way, because then I think we're just following the wrong leader. But, when I sit in a job, my bosses that I have above me, I don't necessarily know that they're just living the way that I think they should live and operating the way. I don't know that they're Christians, but that doesn't mean that I'm not to be under their leadership at this point in time. I wish every job that I ever worked had a hierarchy of Christian leadership in it, but it doesn't. So let's move on, because I think there's a proverb here later on that will kind of tie in with that if we can get to it. Verse 3 says, avoiding a fight is a mark of honor. Woo, baby. I need this one. Avoid a fight. I think did I tell the story about me running and wanting me to fight somebody? Now, I might have told that somewhere else preaching, because I've been kind of outside the church a little bit doing ministry. Wasn't just a little while ago that I had a vehicle that it just seemed like every day it was just a little more irritating. There's somebody trying to run me off the road. Well, and I thought the other day, if that one right there would just pull over, me and him just have at it. Then I started thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I mean, first of all, there ain't nothing going to happen. Any altercation is going to be filmed now. Y'all realize that? Anything you do is going to be. There's just too much out there, too many devices in the back pocket, and too many hits to get on YouTube and get on social media to get somebody to get a chuckle or a laugh, or get somebody drawn to your Twitter account or your Instagram, not to video everything that happens. So I thought, what am I going to do? Am I going to forsake all that I've done in my life for something little minor and stupid that's not even going to amount to anything? Avoiding a fight is a mark of honor. It's a mark of honor. Now, this is really personable to you. You've got to look at this, because here's what we think. Avoiding a fight, especially from a masculine point of view, makes us weaker. That's the way we feel. It makes us weaker. There's been times where I've walked away, and I thought, boy, I wish I just went ahead and just laid it all out there. And for a small amount of time, my emotions and my flesh really, really regretted me not having a fight and a squabble. But then as I got back out of the flesh, anybody know about this struggle about the flesh and the spirit? I mean, I can realize pretty quickly that I'm walking in the flesh and talking in the flesh, and I got to get out of this flesh and get in the spirit. I wish I was perfect all the time. I know some of you just walk in the spirit consistently. And, I mean, it's just 24 24 hours a day, right? I mean, I walk in the Spirit every day. And I try to, and we should try to. We should try to not lay a foundation of day to work. We should walk. But there's some things that, can get you real quick in yourself and not profitable to God. Avoiding fight is a mark of honor. If we can put this in our minds and in our hearts, we're going to save ourselves a lot of heartache. I would say fathers would save us a lot of heartache with their children if they would make sure that there's some battles that need to be picked and some battles that maybe we need to let mom or somebody else deal with. I found that in my life. There's some things that my wife needs to work out with my daughters and not necessarily me work out with my daughters. Now, it's not I'm anti-passiveness. I'm all about being hands-on and hands-on like, whooping time, but I'm just kidding. But hands-on, being involved. Gosh, we're going to have to quit recording these things. But avoiding a fight is a mark of honor. Only fools insist on quarreling. Only fools. I've learned this in my marriage to pick my fights a little bit better and try not to start something because it's going to be a long process. I can quarrel and it's about 15 minutes and it's over and I'm back to my normal self. Not so much my wife. It seems like that quarrel is going to last quite a while. So fools insist on quarreling. And I've had this issue of wanting to be right. Until I get declaration that I'm correct, I want to keep on going. So I have to watch this. This is a very touchy verse for me. See, ain't it amazing? Verse 1 doesn't bother me at all, but verse 3 cuts me up. And it's different strokes, different folks. We all got some different things in our lives that we're working out. None of us are oblivious to it. Verse 4. I know most of you like this. Y'all are hard workers. Those too lazy to plow in the right season will have no food at the harvest. Now, I think of this as very seasonal. I think of this as when you're, a lot of times when you're even I can think about it presently, in your present life. If I have the ability to work, I need to work. But I also think about it while you're young. You need to really be smart and get it as hard as you can get it for the latter days that you can live in harvest. If you don't ever sow, you'll never reap. It's as simple as that. If you're too lazy to plow, if you're too lazy to worry, to think about your finances, to control your finances. Here's the thing about finances. We talked a little bit about that today. There's two things your finances are going to do. You're going to control your finances, or your finances are going to control you. It's as simple as that. When people say, I can't come to church, I can't do this because I've got to work, it's because your finances are controlling you. It's as simple as that. Now, jobs are different. I understand all jobs are different. Some people have to work on Sunday. Some people have to work on Wednesday night. I know there's different strokes, but I also understand how things work. You ain't got to work. There's nobody hardly working 7 days a week anymore. Now, I've got some folks that I know at times they could work 7 days a week, and they're definitely working 6 days a week because they took the verse before, and they're like, I've got to make a harvest. I got to get with it while the getting's good. So I totally understand that. Totally understand that. But I also understand that there's a small picture and there's a big picture. Temporarily, we may have to sacrifice some things because of sowing, right? But the long-term picture needs to be that we're not neglecting God. Because what happens is the small-term picture, we use it as an excuse to neglect God for the long term. Verse 5 says, though good advice lies deep within a heart, a person of an understanding will draw it out. This was a very interesting scripture when I studied it. I actually didn't write a note about it because it was so deep. But it lends to you understanding that good advice lies deep within a person's heart. The best advice usually will not be handed to you. You will have to inquire that. The best advice, the best wisdom that you'll ever find from anybody is because you ask for it. And sometimes you have to do more than ask for it. Now, I'm not talking about anything that you take by force or anything like that. I'm not talking about conquering, like Rome would just conquer people because they wanted their technology and their riches. What I'm saying is the people that, I would almost say the people that are unlike me, when I read this verse, that are not as talkative, that are not as open to giving, a lot of times they're harboring the best advice and the best wisdom. And it's not that they won't give it to you, they're just reluctant to openly give the best stuff to people that won't use it. Good advice lies deep within the heart. A person of understanding, a person that understands this, will draw it out. Now, I've thought about this. A person of understanding, it's not that hard to draw it out because usually the person with wisdom will be willing to give it to the person that is of understanding, a person that understands the way to use this wisdom. You understand, some people don't need wisdom because they're going to abuse wisdom. Some people you just can't give wisdom to because they'll just abuse it. They'll just totally go the other direction, and sometimes they'll use wisdom for evil and not good. So that's something to think about. I think about it maybe from the perspective that I'm trying to draw wisdom out of somebody and trying to find the right questions to ask. Verse 6. If you've never talked to anybody that's very successful in business, you'll know what I'm talking about. This is just, I've got some family that's very successful. I've got people that I've been acquainted with that are very successful, and their secrets, their wisdom is hard to get out of them sometimes, and they have to have confidence in you that you're of a person. Now, that just seems to be world stuff. That just seems to be life stuff to me, that's just life. Verse 6 says, many will say they are loyal friends, but who can find one who is truly reliable? Well, that's the truth, ain't it? I don't know that I need to say a whole lot about that. It's kind of heartbreaking that we can't have more friends than we do. I think we have for years now talked about the different tiers of relationships that I have in my life and how I actually categorize the relationships I have in different levels. And on the very top level, it's that top level is less than the fingers on my hand. So it's less than 5 that is on the top level. Why can there not be more than that on the top level? Because really the truth is you really can't find many loyal friends whatsoever. Now, I know that I think our very easiest friend to have besides our God and our Jesus would be our spouse. That is by far the first and the closest, but anybody that's went through divorce and breakup even knows even the problems there. But I think that individual would be the very first one that we could truly find to be a reliable and true friend. I always, in marriage counseling, talk to especially young married people and even people that are older. Are you friends? Or are you just attracted to each other? Because physically y'all are, there's attributes that you're attracted, but are you really friends? Are you really got a relationship that goes beyond a physical attraction? Even a spiritual attraction, it kind of goes beyond that. Now, when you get beyond that, it's kind of hard to describe those things because it's like this weird connection. But do you truly have a friend? Are you going to be there till death do you part? Are you going to be there? Now, we know, everybody gets real sensitive when we talk about it because we've all made mistakes. And we maybe not with our person that we were with when we started. But the fact remains that you don't jump into a marriage not thinking that this is what this is going to be or planning on what this is going to be. And that's why we still talk about that and we still encourage that, because I would say anybody in here that has suffered through brokenness, divorce, would give somebody advice, make sure this is who you want to be with. And make sure that it's beyond a physical connection, and even to a sense that there's a spiritual connection there, that faiths are the same, that you're not unequally yoked, but that also that you can be friends, that you have some things that are in common, that you're not purely opposites. See, here's the thing about true friends is as you change, they'll still be there. As you change, they'll still be there. I get really frustrated when I hear people having marriage folks and, well, that's just not the woman I married. Well, that's just not the man I married. Well, duh. I mean, my gosh. my wife's been working on me 20 years in December. I better not be the same person I was when I first got married to her. I mean, did you not expect that person to ever change? I think we didn't really expect them to change. Now, do they sometimes? Yeah, obviously, it's not in a positive direction, is it? They change, and it's in a negative direction, a direction. Especially sometimes it's faith in God that changes, and it's very very much of a struggle, isn't it? And I feel very greatly for everybody that's went through that, because that's a tough thing to do. You may marry a Christian and then they renounce Jesus Christ. How do you deal with that? That's a tough pill right there to swallow, isn't it? I mean, really tough. And it's tough. And there's no doubt in my mind that I have great compassion for anybody that has went through that struggle. And that struggle, because when that happens, then the way that person conducts herself definitely probably changes. And obviously we know that it's just a horrible situation, and it's a heartbreaking situation. Verse 7 is really the verse that brought me to this, and it's about time for me to close. The godly walk with integrity. Blessed are the children who follow them. The original kind of puts it in a masculine form, and some interpretations will actually put father here instead of godly. I appreciate the New Living Translation to kind of take us to a level that includes all gender, man and woman. That if the godly walk with integrity, the word integrity is such a huge word. Blessed are the children. One interpretation I read said that the fathers that walk with righteousness, they replace integrity with righteousness. I think the King James maybe even use righteousness. The children will be blessed that follow them. So what we see today is that we observe here that the honor of a good man or a good woman, because I want to be gender equality here, that he or she does well for himself or herself. She has a certain rule, he has a certain rule, which that'll steadily govern them. It'll govern them. They walk with integrity. They keep a good conscience. They have comfort for walking with integrity, walking with a good conscience, and they can rejoice in it. I have said so many times in the society which we live in, and I used to really, really preach this to when I was in the high school and teaching high school students mathematics. I would give them those little life lessons that I just could not help, and I would preach to them this one thing, that it's never wrong to do the right thing. It's not wrong to do the right thing. But society would have us to believe it's wrong doing the right thing. Now, it would really have Christians believe it's wrong doing the right thing. But this individual that's walking godly with integrity can have comfort and can rejoice. You're not really liable to this uneasiness. What you can reflect, you can have good conscience in. You can walk with your head high, not to be exalted, but with humility, that you did what is right. And then what it says is, if this person, if this family, if this man, if this woman, if this father, if this mother, because we do have all kinds of situations within the family, that your family, is what it says, is going to do well because of your integrity, because of your righteous walk. Their children are going to be blessed after them. There's no telling how many people have been brought to the Lord because they said, you know what? Daddy was the best man I ever saw in my life. Mama was the best mama. Grandma was the prayingest grandma. Grandpa, you never heard a bad word come out of his mouth because they walked in righteousness and integrity and were a visual example to their children. To their children. Now, I want to tell you, people could say things about me that my children probably would never believe because what they have saw contradicts what people say. Because, see, no matter how good you are, somebody's going to not like you. Your children will be blessed. Now, how are they blessed? Well, they could be blessed in many ways. They could reap your harvest. I'm sowing some things that I'm not planning on reaping. I'm planning on somebody else to reap them after me. And I'm praying it's my children that are going to reap those. Now, it could be somebody else coming there and reap them. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, anything could happen. But I'm sowing some things that's really not just for me, but it's for those that come after me. Generational blessings. Generational riches. Generational spiritual things that are passed down. See, I don't want my children to have to break a generational curse. I want them to reap the benefits of generational blessings. That's my goal. Not for them maybe to have to fight against generational curses that are passed down, but to be able and willing to receive generational blessings. The children, he says, are blessed after them. They're far better for his sake or her sake. God has mercy in store for the seed of the faithful. There's nothing better for you today than be faithful to your Savior and to your God. There's nothing better for you. It may not seem that way today because you're not getting the answers that you want today. You're not getting the relief that you want today. You're not getting the escape. But I promise you, if you can even tap into your history, being faithful is not the wrong thing to do. Being consistent in your faith is not the wrong thing to do. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard sometimes to not take somebody else's idea outside of your faith and say, you know what, it works for them, maybe it'll work for me. It's hard not to see that there's people in society that have no faith whatsoever, but yet are prospering, and not to think maybe their plan would work for me. Consistency in your faith will never lead you wrong. We may not get the storm pushed away from us. We may have to go through the storm. But remember, even though you feel weak, Paul said, I figured out that in my weakness, his strength is perfected in me. I'm probably the strongest when I go through the trial. I'm probably the strongest when I go through because it's not my strength that's holding me up, it's his strength. God bless you. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. Several of them's come in this morning. We're glad to have you. We'll stop right there and we'll change services, fellowship one another as we do that. God bless you.